All right, let me share my screen and we'll go right in. Right. So in today's session, we'll do a short overview of what are fellowships, what our office does, what are the services that we provide for you. I'll go over some highlighted fellowships, and I mean some of them because there's no way I can cover all of it in just an hour session. And I want to leave some time to discuss the general application criteria for these fellowships. I want to show you our competitive fellowships database. We'll do a really brief application materials overview, and we'll finish with what an ideal application timeline looks like. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to send them through the chat. I'll make a couple of breaks throughout the presentation to make sure that I go through those, and if I don't get to answer it, feel free to just raise your hand towards the end of the presentation, and I'll make sure to leave time to cover those as well. So what are fellowships? I'll start with saying that fellowships offer an opportunity for you to develop your academic and professional interests. They're a networking opportunity for you to meet other people in the field. And it's a really broad term that covers many different funded experiences that can be study abroad, studying a language intensively, conducting research, doing post-undergraduate studies abroad or here in the US, teaching English abroad, doing public or federal services, and some of them offer tuition expense. Now, some people make a difference between scholarship and fellowships. For the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to use the terms interchangeably, but know that most institutions also use them, again, as the same thing. What our office does is that we offer guidance to students and alumni in identifying and applying to nationally competitive scholarships. And I'll go into what this means in just a minute. We support in developing materials like the essays that you have to write, and also help you prepare for the interview if the scholarship that you're applying for requires one. We offer individual advising sessions where I meet with you either to brainstorm about what you're going to write in your essays, or to review the drafts that you're working on for the scholarship. And we also offer events like this and workshops if there are a high volume of students or alumni interested in applying for the same fellowships. What do I mean by competitive fellowships? So there are major scholarships that our office coordinates, because rather than applying directly to this external organization, the students have to go through an internal screening process to be nominated. That means that if you want to apply for a Fulbright or a Goldwater scholarship or a Knight Hennessy, which are all these ones that are listed down here, you have to go through our office for an internal process before you submit your final application. This is not something that you just fill out online. Also note that most deadlines for these scholarships are often a year or sometimes more in advance of the actual funded period. So if, let's say, you're planning to go study abroad in your junior year, you probably want to get started in the fall or the spring of your sophomore year. And the same thing for graduate opportunities. If you want to get funding to do a master's degree or a PhD program, you have to start the process either sometimes in your junior year, as you'll see with some of these, but most likely in the fall of your senior year. And this is just some of these. I'll go over them over the next couple slides. And some others, you can just click through these links to access them. Let's do a really quick overview of some highlighted fellowships. And these ones that I have here are specifically for sophomores and juniors, except the Fulbright, which is for seniors and alumni. The Bourne Awards and the Critical Language Scholarship, which are the first two in this slide, are two programs that are funded by the Department of State. And they were created with the idea that we need more diversity on the languages that are spoken from people that work for the government. So both type of grants fund intensive language learning experiences abroad. The Born is specifically for people who intend to have a career in federal service, and in exchange for funding, you commit to work for a year within the State Department. You can apply as an undergraduate or post-graduation, and campus evaluation is recommended, it's not required. The application itself has a focus on national security, so you need to be able to articulate why you have an interest in studying a specific language as it relates to issues of national security within the country. Now, don't be intimidated. Students from all disciplines can apply for this. You just have to be able to make the case of how is it that learning a specific language like Arabic or Russian or Turkish or Japanese is relevant to a topic that you're interested in. The deadline for this is in early February. And although it seems like it's still a little far away, now is the time to start thinking if you want to apply, because it's so close to the beginning of the spring semester that you don't want to get caught up in the last minute trying to put together an application. The Critical Language Scholarship funds a 10-week summer program that's immersive in a country that speaks the language. And by critical language, think of languages that are not broadly taught in the US. So it doesn't include French or Italian or German. This is for Japanese, Mandarin, Turkish, Urdu, other languages that are harder to study here. You can apply as an undergraduate or as a senior. And it's a completely funded experience. It's a wonderful program. It's cohort-based, which means that you're gonna be with a group of other students that are like-minded and want to do this cultural immersive experience. And I should clarify, the Born Awards, the first one I mentioned, it's a longer experience. So while the Critical Language Scholarship is just 10 weeks over the summer, the Born actually prefers students that want to spend a longer period of time abroad. So you could do a combination of spring and summer, summer and fall, or even fall and spring. For students in STEM that are interested in learning a language, they have a specific initiative for doing a 10-week summer program. It doesn't apply for humanities or social sciences, but know that it's also available. If you're interested in either of these, please come talk to me as soon as possible. I think there's still some time to apply for the CLS if you get in the application sooner rather than later. But if you're considering studying abroad and you're interested in learning a language, the Born might be a great opportunity. Next up, I have the Gaither Junior Fellows Program. The campus deadline for this is November 22nd, which is just a couple of weeks away. And this opportunity is to work for a year with a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace in Washington. Fellows serve as a research assistant for senior Carnegie associates, either academics, government officials, lawyers, or journalists from around the world in issues that range from international affairs, public policy, or public service. If you're interested in doing public service in your career, if you're interested in human rights, in international development, this might be a great program for you. And similar to that, there are several others that are not listed here. So again, if you think you want to apply, now is the time to come talk to me, send me an email so I can discuss with you your candidacy. This requires campus nomination, so you have to submit your materials by November, and then we'll work with you on your application, which is too early in the spring. Last on this slide, we have the Fulbright U.S. Student Program, and this is one of the most flexible and broad programs that funds a year abroad post-graduation to conduct research or obtain a master's degree or teach English in one of over 140 countries. So think of a country and probably Fulbright can take you there. You have to apply as a senior or as a recent graduate. The definition of recent grad is pretty flexible with Fulbright, so you can be 3, 4, 5 years away from graduation, or having graduated within the last 4 or 5 years, and you're still a good candidate. And it also requires campus evaluation. So that means that you have the services of our office available for you as you develop your proposal. Next up, we have the Truman Scholarship, which has a deadline early in the spring as well. And this funds up to $30,000 for a master's degree for people who are planning a career in public service. Now, the Truman is looking for a track record of leaderships. They're looking for change agents, for people that have been able to implement, to inform their communities about issues of community aspects or things that are relevant in our society today. You have to apply as a junior. So at the time of your application, you need to have at least 1 or 2 semesters left as an undergraduate, and campus nomination is required. Again, if you're interested in the Truman, I think I'm gonna say this for most of the ones that I've included here, now's the time to jump on it and try to get more information to see if you're a good candidate for it. The Goldwater is specifically for undergraduates in STEM. If you want to pursue a career in research in STEM, if you want to be a physician, this is not for you. Now, if you think you want to pursue a research career and pursue an MD, PhD, or pursue research within a hospital, or something related to research within any of this engineering, science, technology, mathematics, this might be a good fit for you. You can apply for it as a sophomore or a junior. And although the website says that you need to have a 3.0 GPA, most nominees and people that I've worked with have a 3.7 or above, and they have research experience. This is the most relevant part of the Goldwater. All they care about is the research that you have had and what is your research direction in the future. Again, we're starting to do recruiting for this. So if you're in STEM, you think you want to pursue a career in research, check in with me. This is a great opportunity, and it offers up to $7,500 annually. So if you apply for it as a sophomore and get it, that means you have 4 semesters of funding with it. The NSF Graduate Research Fellowship Program, it's a great opportunity to fund an MA or PhD if you're interested in conducting research. So typically these are scholarships that stack on each other. If you apply for the Goldwater, most likely you're also a good candidate to apply for the NSF GRFP, which is this one. You have to apply at the same time that you're applying for grad school. So that would probably be in the fall of your senior year. And it offers up to $44,000 for up to 3 years. Again, this is a great opportunity if you think you want to pursue a career in research. This will not fund a technical master's program or a clinical psychology degree or anything that is not centered specifically on research. Next up, I wanted to talk about some summer research opportunities. So you might be thinking, these are really cool scholarships that are really big, offer great funding, but how do I get experience to get there? Well, some ways to do this is actually getting summer research opportunities where you can build and show that you have experience. And these 3 right here are, I did 2 of them myself as an undergraduate, so I can attest that they're wonderful learning opportunities. They're all funded and they have a specific focus on providing immersive research experience for undergrads. The first one is the Leadership Alliance Summer Research Early Identification Program, which is a mouthful. It has a deadline of February 1st every year. Through this, you can gain research at a top institution over 8 to 10 weeks in the summer. think Columbia is part of this alliance, but think Harvard, Yale, Stanford, University of Chicago, all these big institutions are part of it. And it specifically gears to underrepresented students in their field. So this can mean a variety of things. If you're a woman in STEM, if you're a person of color in a field that is where you're a minority, these are all things that are gonna play in your favor. And if you're interested in applying for grad school, they also offer training for the GRE and preparation and professional development to prepare you for that. Students from all disciplines and majors are welcome to apply. I was a history and anthropology student as an undergrad, and I got to conduct independent research at Princeton alongside a professor. And I had peers in my same cohort that were conducting research at different labs in Princeton. And they were pre-med on biology, chemistry, all that stuff. Next up is the National Science Foundation Research Experience for Undergrads. Very similar to Leadership Alliance. You gain research experience at a lab in a top institution. It's a 6 to 10 weeks in the summer, and it's specifically for students in STEM and some social sciences. Through this, you get placed at a specific institution, and you conduct research with a professor for the time there, and you have the opportunity to present at a conference or design a poster, do some sort of end of the experience. The deadlines for this range because you're applying for specific labs. Some of them have a deadline that's in late November, some in December, and even some of them go as far as February. So you want to go to their database. You can use this link right here and search by topic, discipline, or your interest, and you should be able to see the specific labs and when are they offering their deadlines. Lastly, I have this experience for the Fulbright UK Summer Institute. This is a great opportunity because it's geared specifically for freshmen and sophomore students. And they prioritize people that don't have study abroad experience. So if you haven't traveled a whole lot and you want to get a sense of what it is to go abroad and study for 4 or 5 weeks, this is gonna be great for you. They require a GPA of 3.7, and the way it works is they offered a range of, I believe last year it was like 8 to 10 institutes, and they're themed. So they have topics like architecture, social movements, climate change. So they have at different institutions, they offer specific topics that you can study. So you gear your application to the specific ones that you want to learn more about. And I'll make a quick break right here to open it up for any questions. You can send those through the chat, or you can just raise your hand. Any questions about any of these opportunities? Right. Is a Gaither scholarship available for juniors? It is not. I should have clarified that. You apply for this as a senior or a recent grad. But if you're currently a junior, I can think of a couple of opportunities that could be good preparation for you as you prepare to apply for the Gaither. So I would say, send me an email so I can send you a couple links. Some of these have deadlines in the spring. Okay, I see another question. Yes, regarding the Yale Lyman Fellowship, yes, that's another great opportunity that has an internal deadline. Set an appointment with me and I'll share more details about how to do that soon. Yes, absolutely. I'll share my email at the end of this presentation. I should have started with that. And I'll show you how you can book an appointment with me via Handshake. All right, so let's continue on. Because next I want to show you. So what happens after you graduate? I mentioned some of these scholarships are specifically for juniors and sophomores. There are several other opportunities that we coordinate that are for experiences post-graduation. The Knight Hennessy, the UK and Ireland Awards, and the Binex Scholarship are some of the big ones that are really prestigious and very generous in the funding that they offer. So the Knight Hennessy funds a graduate degree at Stanford University in California. And you can pursue there a master's or a PhD. It does not require US citizenship. So it's one of those that's open to applicants, to a broad range of applicants, I should say. And what are they looking for? So you're gonna hear this for all three of them. They're looking for kind of the whole package. They're looking for outstanding academic performance. So we're thinking like 3.5, 3.7 GPA. They're looking for leadership, service, initiative, outstanding volunteering experiences. They're looking for scholars that can be outstanding not only within their own discipline, but that can come together kind of to solve the problems of the world. And this one, and they're grouped together, again, because they're all similar in their mission, but this one is for Stanford in California. And then the Rhodes, Marshall, Mitchell, and Gates, they all fund a graduate degree at different universities in the UK and Ireland. The Mitchell is for Ireland. The Rhodes and Marshall are for the UK, and the Gates funds a master's degree or a PhD at Cambridge University. And the same thing, they require evidence of outstanding academic performance, leadership, broad thinking of what are the issues in the world that you want to tackle through your studies and through your commitment. They're all open to all disciplines. So this doesn't mean that they're looking for people in social sciences or only in the humanities. I have worked with students that are in chemistry, journalism, which are kind of less thought majors, and they have been successful in these scholarships. The Binex Scholarship also funds a master's or a PhD program for students interested in pursuing a career, specifically in the arts, humanities, or social sciences. And for this one, you have to apply as a junior. So again, they're grouped together because they're for postgraduate experience similar to the Truman, and they all require nomination. So if you're interested in either of them, certainly reach out, because now is the time to start preparing your application or start considering if this is a good fit for you. I see a couple of questions here. Let me see. Yes, I will be sharing the slides afterwards. Thank you, Amanda. Before we move on, I wanted to show you this. So as I said in the beginning, this is not a comprehensive list of all the opportunities that are out there. If you're interested in pursuing research as an undergrad, you're a freshman or a sophomore, and you don't know where to start, we have an amazing database of competitive fellowships on our website. You can use this link to go there, and you can search by categories like the program type, the discipline that you're in, or the discipline that you hope to get experience in. You can search by the degree level. So if you're thinking you want to get experience right now, as opposed to getting experience post-graduation, you can search by location. You might be interested in doing specific experiences here locally in New York or in the East Coast, or if you want to study abroad in the UK or in Eastern Europe, and so on. So take a look at the fellowships database. One of the things that I've been telling students that request appointments with me is that the expectation is that you get familiarized with this database, because we can make much better use of our time during our meeting if you actually go through it and get a sense of what are the scholarships that are out there, as opposed to coming to a meeting and just saying, I want funding to go to France. That's really broad. Try to get a sense of what are the scholarships that align with the things that you want to do, or what are some options that you think you want to apply. And then we can discuss how you can make a competitive application, how you can develop your essays and put forward the most competitive candidacy possible. So let's go into what is the selection criteria for these scholarships. Most of the ones that I've discussed don't have a specific discipline or major requirements. But individual fellowships, because they have funding institutions themselves, have different criteria. So for some of them, research is the most relevant aspect, like the Goldwater. They're looking for people that have had plenty of research experience as undergrads through labs or through independent research. And for others, leadership and service are much more important. Like for the Truman or the Rhodes and Marshalls, they're looking for people that have been out there, that have been in leadership positions, that have initiated programs. So what I'm going to try to discuss in these 4 points is the broad criteria that you're going to find across the board. And I'll start with academic excellence. As you saw, most scholarships require a high GPA. So you're looking at 3.5, 3.0, 3.5, 3.7 GPA requirements. But beyond that, what's really going to make you stand out? If everyone that applies has this GPA, you can't just lean on that to show your academic excellence. That's when having research experience, having internship experiences, being able to show that you have studied the specific topics that you're interested in researching before comes in handy. So if, let's say, you're interested in urban development and you're, I don't know, an anthropology major, add that. Make sure that you take classes in architecture, or that you're able to take an urban development class in the sociology department. So you can approach a topic from different perspectives, and you are able to show that this is not something that you're very focused on from that one little perspective, but from a broad range of academic discussions. Community engagement and leadership. So this is not only about being the head of the student government or being the president of your local organization. What these scholarships that mention community engagement and leadership mean, have you been able to initiate a specific program or campaign? Have you informed an audience or a community about specific issues? Have you been able to influence on any specific topic or implement a plan? Have you seen a specific gap in your department and created an opportunity for it to be solved? I was recently working with someone applying for an opportunity, and their community engagement example was about how in her dorm, there were not a lot of places for international students to engage with non-international students. So she created this lunch Saturdays event, and it was like a standing meeting where international students got to cook something, and they involved the other dorm members. So it was really cool because you got to learn about the other culture, you got to cook together, and it also influenced people to get curious and get talking and build relationship, build community. So this is the type of thing. It doesn't have to be a political campaign type of level. It has to be about influencing and implementing, showing that you have the critical thinking and communication skills, and have concrete examples to show for them. And building off of that, the communication skills. All these applications that I've discussed have a written component, and many of them also have an interview. So how can you develop these communication skills? Attending to conferences. I know this is particularly hard with COVID and everything that has put a stall in different opportunities that we've had. But try to get experience in public speaking, be that at presentations at your classes, through if you're interested in doing teaching abroad, make sure that you have volunteering experiences or that you are part of a summer camp and you can speak in front of a group of people. Make sure that you can work on these skills as you move through your undergraduate career. So when the time comes for this big scholarships in your senior year, you have experience, both experience to show, as well as plenty of practice. So you don't come to that interview for your scholarship and you get frozen because you've never done something like that before. I'd also encourage you to publish your work. I know this is relatively easier in STEM when students work within a lab and there are presentations coming up from the specific research that you're doing, but try to find either an internal, an internal opportunity for you to publish your work in a blog, a column, a newspaper, something that it's gonna force you to write and go through the editing process, especially because these scholarships require that you are really concise and really specific. The more practice that you can get at doing it, the better. And lastly, find a scholarship that is a good fit. Your trajectory and goals ought to align with the granting institution and their specific mission. It doesn't matter if you're really passionate about research, but you want to be a physician, probably the Goldwater Scholarship is not going to be a good fit. And the same thing for the other ones. You might be a political science major and have some community engagement, but you're not really interested in pursuing public service. So scholarships like the Gaither Fellows or the Truman might not be the specific opportunities for you. Before I open it up for questions, no, so what's the best way to know if something is a good fit for you? Come talk to us. You know, your job is to identify a couple of things that you're interested in, and then don't disqualify yourself. Certainly come and have a discussion about your interests, and we can help you figure out if any of these scholarships that you're interested in or that you want to apply for, you can make a competitive candidacy. And why I say this, it's because you might be really passionate about something, but it's not worthwhile to put in your time and effort in these applications if you're not a strong candidate or if your career goals don't really align with the institution. Because to you, it might make sense to just apply and apply and apply, but you're just gonna get really tired. And the granting institution, they're gonna know if you're a good fit for them or no. So we can help you figure that out so you can channel your energy into specific opportunities that are relevant for you. And before we end, I just want to go over a couple things. What do these applications entail? So as I said, many of them do require an interview, but the standard application materials are two components: a personal statement, a research statement, and recommendation letters. The personal statement is the one essay that you're gonna be working with me the most. And a well-crafted statement is gonna take many, many drafts. You need to give yourself plenty of time before the internal or the external deadline to work on this. Why it's gonna take you a long time? Because this is not a research paper. This is not a term paper that you write for a class. This is where you get to tell your story. And believe it or not, it can be really uncomfortable to talk about challenges and experiences that we've had that have inspired us or that have influenced our career choices. So it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of brainstorming to articulate your career path in terms of the personal experiences that you've had. So be prepared to write, I don't know, I think something between like 7 and 10 drafts I heard once, which is probably way too many times, but the idea that I want to get across is that you're probably gonna have to write several statements as part of the application process. Some scholarships like the Goldwater and the NSF programs require a research statement. We can work with you on that, but generally you develop those either with your academic advisor or your PIs. Because those are so specific to your discipline, you certainly benefit most from getting feedback from people that are within your discipline, as opposed to just a general audience. That's what I would be. And then recommendation letters. I want to spend some time talking about this because all of the scholarships that I mentioned require that you provide recommendation letters. Some of them as little as one, like the CLS program, excuse me, and some others as many as 8, like the Rhodes. So you want to be certain that you have people that can write letters for you. Now you can think like, well, one letter, it's not too bad. And this is a conversation that I've been having with some of the CLS applicants in this cycle. The challenge with that is that because these scholarships typically ask for what I mentioned before, this academic excellence, community engagement, typically you'll have people speaking about different aspects of your candidacy. So you might have an internship supervisor talk about your teaching experiences, and then you'll have a professor speaking about your academic excellence. But when you need to choose between one or the other, things get more complicated. So my recommendation here is think about what can you do from now until senior year or junior year when you are going to start applying for these things to build the relationships with your professor. Now, a common topic that keeps coming up is COVID. You know, I spent my first or my second year on Zoom, so I didn't really build a relationship with my professors. Well, we're back on campus now. Use this time to meet your professors during office hours. Make an effort to connect with them via email. Send them that email and just say like, hey, I took a class with you over Zoom. Your class really inspired me to declare my major in urban studies or declare my major in anthropology. I'd love to meet with you to talk some more about this. And I know it's awkward and I know it can be really daunting, but trust me, building these relationships with your professor over time, it's gonna make it easier for when the time comes for you to ask for a letter. You don't want to lose touch with a professor and then you're scrambling in the very last minute for a third or fourth letter. And then you send an email saying like, hey, I took a class with you 4 semesters ago. Can you write a letter? It's best if you do this now when the stakes are really low, when you're just trying to, you know, get in touch with them, check in, get in their radar, basically. One typical question that I get about this is, okay, I reach out to them, but what do I talk to with a professor? Ask them about their research. Ideally, if you're reaching out to a professor, it's because you did well in their class or because you were interested in what you learned there. So ask them more about that. Like I said, about these like big scholarships like the Rhodes, Marshall, Fulbright, they care about you being able to discuss and talk about a problem from a variety of perspectives. They don't want the people that can only speak to their colleagues in very specific technical terms, but that can speak to a broad audience. So if you're interested in gentrification, if you're interested in genetics, talk to professors that might not be specialists in the area, but that are familiar with it. And you might be surprised about the things that you can learn from them from a different perspective. Before I go into my last slide, are there any questions that I can address about either the application materials or the selection criteria? Do the recommendation letters have to be from undergraduate professors? It's gonna depend. On the scholarships, so for Goldwater, for instance, you're gonna need to have 3 or 4 letters from that can talk about your research experience and about your research capabilities. For something like the Truman, where the emphasis is on community engagement, you probably are going to need 2 letters that can speak about your public service and volunteer experiences. For some other things like the Fulbright teaching position abroad, you probably want one from a professor and one from someone that has been your supervisor or has seen you in a teaching position and can talk about that. So again, it depends on the specific scholarship. That's why there's not one specific type of advice beyond just build your relationship with your professors. Depending on your discipline, your major, and depending on the scholarship that you're applying, it's gonna be different. I hope that answers that question. Any other questions before I go into the application timeline? All right, so what does an ideal application timeline looks like? Now, don't run away just yet. Don't get intimidated by this. I tried to break up, again, an ideal preparation process that you can make to make yourself to be as competitive as possible. What you should be doing on your previous academic or semester or year, and this can be as early as freshman year. Gain experience in the area that you're looking into. Programs like the Leadership Alliance, the NSF research experience for undergrads, internship positions over the summer are great ways for you to explore different career paths or different research experiences that can give you some clarity about declaring your major or defining what is it that you would like to do post-graduation. They will also help you create a network. Why is a network important? Because like I said, some of these applications are going to require that you submit letters that are not going to come from your professors. So you need to meet people in these areas and build relationships with them that can then turn into a letter of recommendation later on. If you think you want to apply for one of these nationally competitive scholarships like Fulbright, Marshall, Rhodes, meet with us. It's never too early, especially if you're unsure about what you should be doing. You can meet with either me at Beyond Barner or with a career counselor to get a sense of what are some of the experiences that you could be doing. So when the time comes to apply, you are as competitive as possible. So let's say you want to apply for a Truman next year and you're a sophomore. You should definitely be getting volunteer and community engagement experiences. Volunteering, teaching, or doing an internship in City Hall. There's many ways you could go about it, but you have to start now. You don't start it with your application. Same thing for things like the Goldwater. If you want to get a research grant, you need to be able to show that you have research experience. So get into a lab, connect with professors now. So when you're a junior and you apply for it, you have that under your belt. 2 to 6 months before the deadline, meet with us again to discuss your candidacy. Like many of these scholarships that require nomination, we will have an internal deadline. So for these ones that have deadlines in January and February, the deadline is actually at the end of the fall semester. So you will probably start drafting some of your application materials now. You'll have to contact letter writers now. And it's particularly tricky for these ones because their deadlines are so close to the beginning of the spring semester that if you don't get a head start now, it's probably going to be too late to start writing just 2 weeks before you have to submit the application. How far in advance you start, again, it depends on the fellowship. I have worked with successful candidates that start writing 2 weeks before the Fulbright deadline, and I have worked with students that start working on it 6 months before. So it's going to depend both on you and the type of scholarship that you're applying for. But to be a competitive candidate, you need to have this. You need to have the experiences. You need to have the preparation beforehand. If you don't have that, there's no way you can pull it together when the time comes to write. 1 or 2 months before the deadline, this is the ideal time to request the letters of reference. If you've already asked your professors or letter writers, then the ideal thing would be to share drafts that you have or send a reminder or register them in the application portal. This is a time typically when students start working on their drafts, and you're encouraged to seek feedback either from me or from professors in your discipline. And for things like Fulbright, the institutional interview will take place. So this is part of the internal process, and you'll be called for most likely a Zoom interview, but this is when it happens. 2 weeks before the deadline, you have to send reminders to your letter writers and ideally distribute a draft of your application. So telling them this is where I am, this is my close to final draft as you prepare to submit these. Meet with us, have people give you feedback on your drafts. Many scholarships are going to request academic transcripts. So probably around this 2-week mark is a good time to request it, to give yourself time if there's any issue in getting it, or if it takes like a few business days, so you have it by the time of the deadline. The week before, you seek feedback on your near final drafts, make final tweaks and adjustments, and ideally you submit before the day before the deadline. I always tell students, aim to submit before, because scholarships like the Fulbright, for instance, because they have such a high volume of applicants, they're known for their website crashing the day of the actual deadline. So you might be struggling to submit your application hours before it. So always plan to have your application ready a day in advance. Before I open it up for questions, this is my email on the screen. You can take a screenshot, you can write it down. But also know that these slides will be sent to you either later today or tomorrow. You can also set up an appointment with me via Handshake. Go to appointments, fellowships advising, and there you can see my availability. If you have general questions, you can also contact us at Beyond Barnard. And I think that's all I have for you. Let me see. All right, so let me stop sharing my screen. We have a few minutes before 5 o'clock. If you have any questions, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself or raise your hand. Thank you, Amanda, for the tips on internships. Yes, use all the resources at Beyond Barnard. For peer career advisors, other employment advisors are great for you to get a sense of what makes sense within your discipline. Again, because many of these are really broad scholarships that you can apply from STEM or the humanities or social sciences. It's going to change the requirements, and it's going to change the type of experiences that you should have. And what do you do to get prepared? Probably a professor or a peer career advisor. It's going to be a better resource to point you in that direction. All right. Any last questions? No, you don't need to bring anything to book an appointment with me. Ideally, you'll identify something that you're interested in applying for, so we can focus our meeting. But there's no previous homework that you have to do, kind of just getting a sense of what is it that you're interested in is enough. Also note that most of these scholarships will not pay for your tuition, so they fund specific experiences. If you want to study abroad, or if you want to learn a language, or if you want to conduct research, that's the type of thing that we'll be discussing, as opposed to just getting funding for a specific class that you want to take or a specific experience you want to pursue as an undergrad. Are there any research labs for the humanities at Barnard, Columbia, and the fellowships database mentioned on the slides? That's a really good question, and I'm afraid I don't have an answer. But Anna, if you're interested in doing research in the humanities, I'd encourage you to look into the Leadership Alliance program. Columbia is part of that Leadership Alliance, and their summer program is a wonderful beginner experience for you to get familiarized with what research looks like in the humanities and work with a professor on a topic that you're interested in. No, it's only for external opportunities. Yep. Right, if there's no other questions, feel free to send me an email with any doubt. Feel free to also request an appointment, and I look forward to working with you on your fellowship applications. Take care, everyone. Bye.